Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Dave, Season 1, Episode 9, Allie's Toast is the episode I will be completely spoiling, breaking down, talking about every small little aspect, detail of this episode. So if you don't want to be spoiled, move on along. But if you don't mind, if that's what you're here for, welcome. Come on in. Let's get it going. This episode starts off and is featuring primarily Dave and Allie. Obviously, Allie's in it. Her toast is a big aspect of this episode. A great episode. I guess before I get into it, I want to say I love this episode. This episode made me cry. This episode I relate to personally on a few levels. And let's with all that said, let's get into it. Starts off with Dave working on a track. He's sitting at his computer, singing into the auto-tune, kind of picking up Allie's voice in the background as she's packing. They're both getting ready, or she's getting ready to head on out to a wedding. Dave will be joining her. Her sister is getting Her sister is getting married. And it's this beautiful, like, little relationship duet where she comes over and he puts the headphones on her so she can hear what her voice sounds like auto-tuned, and they're, kind of just having a little conversation, but musically, it's beautiful. And it ends with a nice kiss between the two of them, who are very much in love. At the end of the last season, Dave apologized to Allie for not inviting her to the Justin Bieber party that he didn't even show up to. And really showed Dave kind of maturing, I guess, as somebody who's in this relationship, but primarily focused on and obsessed with his rap career. So beautiful little moment. And Dave asks if he can use that little piece as an interlude for one of his tracks. So still, despite the fact that it's a cute little moment, Dave's still focused on making music, making his dreams come true. Cut to Dave and Allie driving on their way. I believe it's in Napa, the wedding. So they're on the road. Allie's trying to brainstorm. She is the maid of honor and is required to give a toast. And she's freaking out. She's trying to figure out what to talk about. And Dave, I would say, doing a pretty good job at giving her some kind of direction, some kind of jumping off points to try and think of something that would be good, something that would be, worthwhile, that she would feel good about writing and giving a speech about, a toast about. But she's afraid of being judged, of course, which is something that she should be able to relate to Dave on that aspect. There's, for any artist, musician, anybody putting anything out into the world, there is a fear of being judged. You could be a podcaster. I know a lot of people who failed to start podcasting because of their fear of being judged, which is ridiculous, because at the end of the day, nobody really cares. And it won't last that long. Like, as far as podcasting goes, or even making music, like, it's unlikely that any real amount of people will ever hear it. But still, on a small level, there's a fear there. Obviously, as well, the fear of public speaking is, I believe, the number one fear above death for most people. So would make sense that Allie is a bit nervous about giving this speech. On the drive, Mike calls in, one of the only other members of this show, to have small bit of this episode. There's no Gata in this episode whatsoever. There's no Emma in this show. Obviously, the producer isn't in this one. But Mike calls because there's an offer for a pre-contract. The studio, or the label that they met with that matched Dave up with Benny Blanco, they want to have a pre-contract, kind of like just an agreement that he is going to sign with them, assuming they work out a contract that he likes. Because Dave knows what happens in the music industry. He's not an idiot. He's not looking to just get a deal for the sake of getting a deal. He knows how many artists have been screwed over by record labels, taking away creative control, taking like huge chunks of their revenue from like every revenue stream that they could possibly get their hands into. So he's very tentative. Mike obviously wanting to get this deal done because he knows the other side of that coin, where it's like you can't just wait forever. You can't, like, you're not going to, like, opportunities don't always come around. So if it seems like a good opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. But anyway, Dave isn't into it. Meanwhile, accidentally, bam, they run into a bunny. Tragic. I don't believe any bunnies were actually hurt in the making of this episode, but there is a bunny on the road. Dave hit it with the car. They both get out of the car, Allie and Dave, and they're looking at this poor little bunny twitching on the ground, still alive. Allie wants to put this bunny out of his misery because she feels bad. She's got compassion, obviously, and Dave's got compassion too, just not quite as much as Allie. But she wants him to end it, so Dave gets back in the car, right, to run over this bunny, because he's not going to curb stomp the bunny. Like, if I were in that situation, yeah, I probably wouldn't have stopped, to be honest. Like, if I'm driving and an animal, a small animal, runs out in front of the car, a squirrel, a rabbit, fuck, if it's a bird, runs in, and I know I hit it, I am going to just keep going. There is nothing there for me. I do not want to see the aftermath of whatever roadkill I just created on the road. But they stopped. And to put this bunny out of its misery, they're going to run over this bunny again. But of course, in the slowest possible way, Allie's outside of the car directing Dave like he's backing up a semi into like a narrow receiving bay. Dave is inching this car in reverse closer and closer to this bunny's skull, narrowly missing the skull and only running over the ears, which only adds to the pain of the bunny screaming. So Allie gets in the car, and they just plow over this bunny one more time. And as soon as they run over the bunny the second time, cuts right to moments later where Dave is just blissfully singing Blues Traveler, and Allie is traumatized in the seat next to him. A hilarious scene. Obviously, not helping Allie's situation. Already stressed out about this toast that she's got to give. Also, just whatever stress comes with having to be around your family, which in this episode seems like she is kind of the black sheep of the family in a lot of ways. And Dave, who's so, like, his only real focus in life is music. So whenever something happens, it's past. He's no longer dwelling on the fact that he ran over this bunny, which, you know, is a bummer. It's a bummer, I guess. Cut to, they arrive at like this giant estate, this Airbnb, this place the parents rented for the wedding, for the family, this giant house. You get to see Allie's parents and her family come out, her her soon-to-be brother-in-law comes out and helps Dave. This buff dude comes out and helps Dave with the luggage. And just kind of, the awkward hellos of everything. Allie's got a stress headache, obviously, from not only the bunny massacre that happened, but also the stress of being around her family, the stress of having to come up with this toast that she doesn't even understand why she has to make. She's not even that close with her sister. But we get to see Allie's parents. Cut to later on in the evening, they're all having dinner. And the two, her sister and her new husband, are lawyers, and they're having their lawyer talk. And Dave asks a question that I have, internally asked before about what is the deal with multiple life sentences? Like, do the courts believe in reincarnation? Like, what is the deal? Why is there the people get charged with like multiple life sentences? Obviously, there is no answer. His idea, his possible excuse for it being reincarnation was not the answer, but also the answer not given. It's more complex than that, apparently. But the conversation shifts. Allie's mom asks Dave, who is a former ad man, or maybe it's her dad, mentions that Dave used to be in advertising. But they ask him how the quote-unquote rap thing is going. Which is a question that, on a personal standpoint, as somebody who creates art, I sell art, design stuff, also produce podcasts, and have been doing those things for quite a long time. Quit my previous jobs in order to try and make this a success, as Dave is trying to make his career a success. I have been asked those questions as well during the dinner times of holidays with people that you see maybe once in your life. Not a question that I enjoy being asked, because they're not like, unless things are going great, it's not like people are going to understand. Like, people don't generally understand or care about the struggles of an artist. But Dave, of course, plays it off great. He's, talking it up. He is embellishing, which is something that I should probably get better at doing. I've had my moments when like small victories have happened. I definitely highlight those and promote those as much as possible when people want to talk, because it's like you can easily make these small moments sound impressive. And one of those things that Dave, one of those small little moments that's pretty innocuous in the grand scheme of things, but can sound really impressive when you're at a dinner party with your girlfriend's parents and family, is that you were in the studio with Bieber. But of course, we all know the reality of that situation is that Dave just happened to walk into this soon-to-be producer's house, or his new producer's house, and Justin Bieber just happened to be there. So yeah, did he get to meet Justin Bieber? Yeah, sure he did. But was he working with Justin Bieber? Were they actually in a studio working together? Stretch. A little bit of a stretch, but sounds great. Perfect thing to kind of say during a dinner party. And of course, Dave elaborates. He's like, yeah, it's like I'm finally shedding my skin of my old life, which is true. As we've watched this show, he has gone from never only having one popular song to gaining some more traction with an online meme, to then now potentially getting contracts. And he's like, oh yeah, these record labels are throwing me like offers left and right. Really, really selling the idea that he is far more desired than is real, which could also be just Dave's mentality of he is the best, he is the greatest, and this is like he's already acting as if it is an inevitable conclusion, which is in some ways how you have to act to survive the early stages where success is few and far between. The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, but go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out, browse the entire collection, and when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show. But he feels good that he's shedding his skin. He's changing. Meanwhile, Allie is getting shit. She's trying to justify her being a teacher. And that, like, you know, kids want to be teachers too. Like, they're comparing the career path of Dave to Allie, which there's nothing more honorable, in my opinion, other than being like a medical professional, to be a teacher. Like, to try and educate children is an extremely important job and should be treated far more important in our society than the majority of famous people are, who contribute nothing to society, who grew up rich from rich parents and talk down to people as if they're lazy. Teachers should be paid just as much as, like, surgeons do, you know? But we don't care about education in this country. So Allie's trying to justify her teaching. And Allie goes off because she's kind of done with the conversation. And you can hear her dad talking to Dave about how other rappers try to diversify their revenue streams. Which, of course, Dave, sure, I'm sure Dave's thought of that. He wants to get into condiments. Makes sense. Makes sense. But he's not into veggies. He's not into vegetables. And but he's willing to try a carrot to appease the judging parents that are around, because his mom never made him eat his vegetables. He doesn't like fruits and vegetables. And that's kind of a weird person. I know people like that, and it's kind of weird. I mean, like, from a health perspective, it just seems insane that people can just, like, live healthy lives without ever being, quote unquote, into carrots. So he takes the smallest bite you can off of a full carrot, cooked carrot, and not happy with it whatsoever. Cut to later on in the evening. Dave is in bed doing his fan interactions, and Allie is venting about her family, venting about this speech that she's got to give. And Dave is trying to change the subject, trying to maybe get a little naughty with Allie, but she's not into it. And Dave tells her about this ability that he has, where he can ejaculate hands-free. He doesn't even need to touch his penis to come. And she's hoping that he doesn't do it while laying beside her. And he assures her that he's going to save up that powerful cream of his for another time. Cut to the next morning. Dave is on the phone. I want to say he's texting. Maybe he's on the phone. I think he's talking to Mike. And Mike, the deal is now they have a number. Went from a pre-contract to now they have a number. $200,000. for his entire catalog, which is My Dick Sucks, and then I would imagine the album that he's going to do. And Dave, again, hesitant because he doesn't want to give his he doesn't want to sell himself and end up being screwed because it happens so often. They're going on a hike. So while this is going on, Allie comes out. They're about to go on a hike with their family. Dave, not necessarily the hiking kind of a guy, but goes begrudgingly. And on the hike, not the most sure-footed person, Dave, but he is on the hike, comes up with a potential new song, Fuck Hikes, and starts singing the Fuck Hikes song. And then Allie kind of points out the fact that it doesn't really sound right, sounds kind of anti-Semitic, which doesn't, it does the opposite for what Allie thinks she's helping him avoid potential windfall from a controversial song. But Dave knows that controversy sells, and he wants to take a note of it because it's probably going to be a song that he makes at some point. And since he is being creative, Allie wants to kind of shift that creative energy into something that would be productive in helping her deal with her issue, which Dave has been pretty absent aside from the small amounts of advice and help that he gave on the drive there. Hasn't really been a big support for her trying to come up with this toast that she's got to do. So they try and brainstorm, but immediately Dave gets an emergency feeling in his gut. There's nothing more like just, I don't even know the word. When you're on a hike and all of a sudden your guts start to bubble. Like, you know that now is the time that shit is going to go down, quite literally. There is no moment in your life when you are far away from a toilet when having the immediate feeling of anal explosions happening. There's no comfort in that feeling. There's no solace. There is no joy. And Dave, scrambling. Like, when you have those feelings and you're far away, your brain races faster than Usain Bolt. At the amount of options and scenarios you are shuffling through your brain in those seconds, from feeling your asshole exploding and the actual explosion. It is like a lifetime passes through your brain in those seconds of all of the options, all of the potential universes, all of the fractured and splintered realities that could exist from that exact same moment. And what is the best one to choose? Thankfully, he's able to rip his pants down and squat into a puddle. You see a chunk of shit fall out of his ass. Hilarious scene. He blames it on the carrots. But Allie knows that it's bullshit because he only had like the smallest bite of a carrot. It was probably from the dinner. I mean, what else would it be from? But yeah, a poop emergency happened mid-hike. Cut to now they're at their rehearsal dinner, right? And they're all dressed up, having a nice dinner. I mean, it goes from him like just shooting Hershey squirts into a puddle on a hike to chocolate sauce being poured over. I mean, it's the perfect. I mean, you can't make a comedy where somebody poops in a random spot and not have the next scene have to deal with chocolate on some level. Like Me, Myself, and Irene. You have the scene where the dude, where Hank goes and takes a shit on his neighbor's front lawn to get back at him for the dog that he lets shit on his lawn. And as soon as he drops trow to take a shit, it cuts to a soft serve of some chocolate yogurt going into a cup. And in that same fashion, it goes from Dave letting loose into this little puddle and then cut to chocolate sauce being poured over some kind of pastry. And one of the waiters recognizes Dave and wants to get a selfie with Dave. Super excited. Unlike the previous time in the show where somebody recognized Dave when they're out to eat, did not mention that Allie likes to give him head. But they're at this rehearsal dinner. He gets the selfie. Mike texts him, so Dave kind of leaves to kind of deal with this text because he's trying to. Mike is freaking out. Mike's freaking out. Allie's not very happy because Dave is just not there. Because of this thing with this deal, because Dave is so hyper-focused on his career, he is abandoned the relationship in a lot of ways, emotionally and just mentally. He's not there. He is not present, and she needs him to be present. She needs him to be there for her because she is not very comfortable in this situation. So Allie's mad. She comes out, and they get into a fight. And this is a fight where she's talking about how Dave's not present. He's always focused on work and not the relationship. And it's a fight that, like, I can relate to. Where there's definitely parts of my life, parts of myself that 100% agree and side with Dave in this moment. And even the first time I watched the show, I was on Dave's side. But for whatever reason, this most recent watching of this episode to talk about in this, probably because reviewing each episode and taking notes on each episode and really analyzing everything that happens, I saw this moment, this fight from a new perspective, from Allie's perspective. And it made me realize why my relationship that I had this whole episode reminded me of a previous relationship of mine from top to bottom. And I was super distracted those days as well. Because there was a lot of things. I was getting a lot of traction for the first time, getting a ton of traction with podcasting. And it was crazy. It was crazy. And it's like you want to strike while the iron is hot. So it is easy to get obsessed with what that next step is to try and take advantage of this situation. But in that, it is so easy to get lost in the sauce and to forget that you're in a relationship and that somebody else wants to be a part of your life and requires your energy to be spent on them as much as it is with their work and with their dreams. And it's a great scene. I mean, it's not a great scene in that it makes you feel good. It's a bummer because they're fighting, and I love both of them. I love the relationship that Dave and Allie has. I relate to, on some level, what Dave is going through, but then I also, for the first time, seeing it from her perspective and agreeing with her. I mean, I'm agreeing with both of them, really. But Dave is unwilling to see the other side of it. There's a lack of desire to compromise. And it doesn't go good. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. Cut to the wedding reception. Like they cut to they're part of this picture. The wedding happened. All the people involved and their dates, they're up getting a photo. And then the reception's happening, and you see Dave is off doing his own thing, and Allie's off doing her own thing. And now Mike calls, and the offer is now up to $250,000, $250,000 now. So it went from a pre-contract to $200,000, now it's up to $250,000, and the label is talking like they're just going to remove the offer and trash it all together. And Dave, again, talking about all of the good points that Dave should be talking about, despite the fact that this is a label that says they're going to allow him for creative control, right? So it's like, on some level, it's also fear of success. Kind of that idea of like self-sabotage. Like he's almost self-sabotaging himself, almost letting this opportunity go. And we don't see how this opportunity concludes. Like at no point does Dave go, okay, we're going to sign this deal. But where we're at right now is Mike is frustrated. Mike wants Dave to sign this deal. It makes the most sense ever to Mike. And Dave should really put his faith in Mike at some point, making with in regards to this deal. Like that is Mike's job, is to handle the business aspect of it. And Dave micromanaging, and it makes sense because it is his career. It is his art. So there is a fear there. There's a fear of commitment too. Fear of him committing to this label in a very similar way that he is separating himself from the commitment that he has with his girlfriend, Allie. But this conversation with Mike gets cut short. You hear the ding, 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 ding speeches. The toasts are about to happen. And Dave knows that this is, despite the fact that he's been so detached, so distracted with this whole contract negotiation, whatever, he does know that this is an important thing. And he goes in to listen to Allie's speech. And Allie's speech is amazing. It is the thing that makes me cry. It is the thing that, even though when I watched this show and this episode the first time, I was still like on the side of Dave. And it's the thing where at that time I felt like it is from the outside for people that are in a relationship with an artist. Like it is the reality of what it is to be an artist. There's like this romantic idea of what it is to be with an artist, versus the reality is completely different. And Allie's speech is all about this magic show that she went to with her sister when they were kids. And the sister got brought up on stage, and the magician made her disappear. And throughout their entire lives together, despite the fact Allie constantly asking her how the trick worked, the sister never told her. She just told her that she disappeared. And the whole metaphor for that is keeping the magic magic. And when you unveil the reality behind the magic, will eliminate the magic. And Allie, being with Dave, has uncovered the reality of what it's like to be with a narcissist, to be with an artist who is determined to be successful, who has the ambition to potentially be successful. But also the idea, the how the speech goes, how the toast goes, is that her sister has that ambition to not only keep the magic real, but also to keep the relationship real. Like that, like in her speech, it's also her talking to Dave about how she wishes Dave would use that ambition that he has to be this amazing artist, to have an amazing career, if he were to use that same ambition to make his relationship amazing. And Allie is coming to the conclusion that Dave is not going to be that person. And it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. And beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful speech, beautiful metaphor. I love it so much. And it's like, like, as somebody that lost a relationship because of similar things, just so driven, so myopically driven to succeed, that relationships get put off to the side, get put off. And if those relationships get put off too much, too often, then they die. Just like anything. If they don't get fed, they die. And in this show, Dave is not feeding his relationship. He is only feeding his career. And it's like it is the turning point in their relationship. Brutal. Cut to Dave alone in his car, listening to the song that they made at the beginning of this episode, that little musical interlude. This adorable, loving relationship conversation set to music. And it's heartbreaking. Because they are so sweet together. And also, from a personal standpoint, it's like, oh, like, I know that feeling. I know that feeling when you see your actions destroy a positive aspect of your life. But also the mindset of Dave, where it's like emotionally you're looking at Dave, you're watching Dave as he's driving, listening to this thing, and you know that he's sad, and you know that he's like mourning this loss that's not necessarily officially broken up, right? But it's definitely a turning point in their relationship. Like, it's a situation that something needs to change or it's not going to last. And you see the sadness in Dave's face, but then as the song goes on, you see him like feeling the music more. And you see that, like, that other side of him, that ambitious side that wants to succeed in music, is now listening to that song in a way that, like, how can I use this? How can I make this thing even better? And it's like this tragic thing where he's his own worst enemy when it's coming to his relationship, but also you have to be that psychotically driven and focused to be successful. You have to be. It is like so impossible to become successful in general when it comes to music, when it comes to fine art, when it comes to directing, writing, producing, whatever piece of art, whatever creative thing you want to do. It is, the odds are stacked against you. And you have to be obsessed. You have to be obsessed. Your career has to come first. And Allie, it makes sense how most people do not want to come second to a career. I haven't been in a relationship since my relationship that reminds me of this episode ended. I've tried and I can't, because I know my work comes first. My podcasting comes first. My art comes first. Like, I am so far from being comfortable allowing my life to be opened up to what would be distractions. So it's like you give up love in order to succeed. And it's tragic. It is sad. And, you know, those aspects of this episode make me cry. They make me cry because I see myself, but also I cry because I know that, like, I can't help that right now. I can't justify going on a vacation. I can't justify taking moments out of my life to not focus on how to improve, how to get better, how to make this thing work. So I love this episode. I'm actually very surprised I didn't cry. I didn't get choked up. This show has made me cry. And I probably will for the last episode of season 2. That one might make me cry again. But this episode was amazing. So heartfelt. That is the end of the episode. It ends with Dave in his car listening to this song, listening to this thing that he recorded with his girlfriend. His girlfriend that he's, you know, potentially not going to be with anymore. You know, she's no longer willing to be second in his life. You know, she wants to be with somebody that puts her first, puts their relationship first. And on a lot of levels, I 100% agree with her. I mean, and I also agree with Dave, you know, because it's like all of these things, like the fact that he's being distracted by Mike throughout this whole episode, you know, he's afraid of the commitment that it's going to take to stick with that a label. He doesn't want to be screwed. It's like so many big potential things are coming from this episode. Anyway, I loved it. It was Dave, season 1, episode 9, Allie's Toast. It is the second to last episode. Episode 10 is called Jail. The final episode of season 1, and then I will be rolling right into season 2. As far as Dave news, from what I heard, Andrew Santino was on a podcast this past week on Scissor Brothers. Hey, I just happened to by coincidence, I'm wearing a Scissor Brothers shirt, which is a YouTube show, which is a lot of fun. But Andrew Santino was a guest on that show, and he mentioned that they probably won't start filming until the fall, season 3. Also, Gata was on an episode of Chad and JT. What is it? Chad and JT, Going Deep with Chad and JT, which is a good podcast as well. But I don't think they talked too much about season 3. He did talk about how Gata had a manic episode while recording season 1, which is crazy because in season 1 they also talk about his his bipolar disorder. But yeah, Andrew Santino mentioned that they will probably be filming in the fall, and so I would imagine maybe the end of the year, season 3 will come out. I don't know. That's all the information I have so far. Great episode. Check it out. Dave, season 1, episode 9, Allie's Toast. Don't cry. Get some tissues. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.